How is everybody this morning? Feeling good? We've used a little sunshine. Maybe the temperature could go up a bit. But we're here, we're alive, we're thinking, and life is good. Now, the story I'm about to tell you takes place many, many years in the future. Cousin Ozzy died and found himself at the pearly gates of heaven. There he meets St. Peter. And St. Peter starts to interview him for entry. And he says, Cousin Ozzy, looking over your file, you never really held a job. You didn't really give to a lot of charities. You weren't a real helpful person when people were in need. I can't really see any reason here why you should be allowed into heaven. And Cousin Ozzy says, wait, just wait a darn minute. I was at Lars's Tavern, and a pretty young woman came in. She sat at the bar and ordered a sarsaparilla. Shortly after that, a rough and woolly cowboy came in. He sidled up to that woman, put his arm around her, whispered flirtatiously in her ear, and tried to kiss her. The more the woman resisted, the more that cowboy persisted. So I walked up to that cowboy and I took his arm off the woman and I said, you are a chicken-livered, yellow-bellied snake, and you'd have no place in this saloon. I want you to leave right now. And St. Peter says, well, that's really admirable that you would do something like that. He says, but I can't find it in your file. You know exactly when it happened? And Cousin Ozzy said, yeah, about 2 minutes ago. Just let it sink in a little bit. You'll probably laugh about it on the way home. Anyway, for those of you who are new here or visiting from out of town, even watching this on the internet, we get together on Sunday mornings, we talk about life. We talk about existence. We talk about God, which is probably the most difficult thing to truly grasp in regards to what God is, where God is, what God does, and what our relationship is with God. So I'd like to do just a little bit of a tutorial on God for some of you that are new. Now we know that existence began 14 billion years ago with the Big Bang. And I mention that almost every Sunday. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, and then all of a sudden there was this cosmic, energetic mass. And it wasn't the universe. The universe doesn't hold this energy that came about. The energy is the universe. There's nothing but the energy. Oftentimes, and they call it the 3 O's. That energy that came forth at the Big Bang was, first of all, omnipresent. It was every place. There was no place where that energy wasn't. And secondly, it was omnipotent. It meant that it was all-powerful. There is no other power. There is no other force. There is no other creativity than this energy. And third, it's omniscient. From the very beginning, within this energetic mass, there was a vision, there was a design, there was the intention to evolve and create, up to this point, everything that exists. This energy is commonly referred to as God. And when I say God, I don't mean somebody out there disconnected from you. I don't mean somebody that comes and goes in your life. I don't mean somebody that shows up someplace and doesn't show up someplace else. I'm talking about God that is omnipresent, everywhere, from the stars, the furthest reaches of the universe, down into the very atomic structure of your existence. I'm talking about an omnipotent power that is available to each and every one of us to create our lives, to move forward and handle our problems and challenges, to do whatever we need to do to live a life of well-being. And I'm talking about omniscience. God is omniscience in that every single living thing is given what it needs to live a comfortable and fulfilling life. Now let me repeat that. Every living thing is given what it needs to live a comfortable and fulfilling life. And that includes us as human beings. We are the shining glory right now of God's creation. And sitting on top of your shoulders is a brain that has 10 billion neurons that are connected, each neuron connected to 10,000 other neurons. It is the most magnificent, the most majestic, the most intellectual object in the entire universe, and it's sitting on top of your shoulders. Now, I'm saying this to you collectively, but I mean it to you individually as well. You have that kind of power within you. You have that kind of thinking power within your mind. Since the beginning of the Big Bang, God has absolutely done nothing but evolve. God doesn't plan. God doesn't think things out. God just evolves on a moment-by-moment basis. God doesn't deal with yesterday. God doesn't deal with the future. It just moves forward. And it has two guiding principles that help evolve into higher forms of expression. And those are, it is self-organizing and it is self-correcting. Self-organizing in that every single living thing has what is called an entelechy. Entelechy is the inner design. It is a spiritual blueprint of what everything is meant to become. The entelechy of an acorn is that of an oak tree. The entelechy of a seed planted in the ground is the fully blossomed flower. The entelechy of the caterpillar is the butterfly. We as human beings have an entelechy or a design or a blueprint within us to grow into. We are not the finished product. We're not done. We have the opportunity and we have the potential to continue to evolve to higher levels of good that are reserved for us and us alone. Now, when we look at this incredible organizational structure within the universe, it pops up in many places as miracles, and the caterpillar is one of those things. The caterpillar is, going around the path of life the best that it can, with 35 legs and a belly an eighth of an inch in the ground. But there is something within it that knows there is more. So the inner direction, the intercellular direction in the caterpillar guides it to cocoon itself. And when it cocoons itself, it actually digests itself. It begins to melt down. All the material substance disappears. The structure disappears. The design disappears until there's nothing but this soupy mass. Within the soupy mass, something miraculous appears. All the cells lose their purpose or their point. They become mute, so to speak, where they have no purpose. But imaginal cells, imaginal because they hold a vision, new imaginal cells come about within that soupy mass, and just like a drill sergeant at a Marine boot camp, those imaginal cells start directing the other cells as to what to do. It's like you will become an eye cell, you will become a wing cell, you'll become a leg cell or whatever it is, and those cells then begin to grow into what they were meant to be. Now, I tell you this because the world that we live in and the universe that we exist in is based on evolution. Everything is evolving. It has from day one. It's evolved up to this point. It'll continue to evolve, whether we as human beings are involved or not. But if you stop and think about it, and we go back to our ancestors, say 5,000 or 10,000 years ago, they had absolutely no idea what their species, what that human species would evolve into. They could not imagine, no matter how hard they try, their future offspring sitting in a place like this. They could not imagine us walking around with little phones in our pockets or flying through the air or landing on the moon. It was way beyond their comprehension. So here we are, human beings. We're very smart, much smarter than the cavemen. What are we going to evolve into? That is the big question. What is the grand design? What is the plan that we as human beings are going to evolve into? Can you even imagine 5,000 years from now what a human being is going to look like if they exist? And at that point, will there be any need for the body? Probably not. Consciousness is the realm where everything takes place. So perhaps a world of just pure conscious stimulation, conscious interaction is what will take place. We don't know. But we do know this, throughout the entire period of evolution, there is a self-organization that provides everything what it needs to live a comfortable and fulfilling life, but then there's also self-correction. And that is when something has come to a point where it cannot continue to grow or to evolve and become something greater than it is, to become something greater in the grand design of God's evolution, one or two things happen. Either that species becomes extinct, or there's a mutation that takes place. Thus, the big transition from the Neanderthal man to the modern-day human being. The Neanderthal man couldn't continue to evolve up to all of this, so there's a mutation that took place, and a modern human being came about. For those species that refused evolution, that did not want to move forward. They simply became extinct. And we have several examples of that throughout our history. So I'm telling you this because we as human beings have come to the point where we need to take a close look at not only ourselves as a species, but also take a close look at ourselves individually and make a determination. Am I in the flow? Am I in cooperation with this grand evolution called God, or am I resisting it? Am I at an advantage and a benefit to what's going on, or am I disrespectful and not a benefit to what's going on? Now, if we take a close look at the human race, it is very easy to see that the trajectory that we're on is going to lead probably to a mutation or an extinction. We can't continue the way we are. We can't continue to live in a world where there's 17 million children every day that are starving from malnutrition. We can't live in a world where we develop weapons that can wipe out thousands and thousands of miles of life simply by pushing a button. We can't live and evolve in a world where we aren't connected with this higher source, where we don't realize our oneness, but where we're independent and we're fighting, we're arguing, and we're selfishly trying to get all that we can and not give out as much as we get. Something has to change. And it will. We'll become extinct, or mutation will take place. And that mutation will take place in consciousness. Something will happen where we'll rise up to a higher level of consciousness and we'll think like we've never thought before, we'll act like we never thought before. Our perceptions of the world and everybody else will be something that we've never ever considered before. That's the only choice. That or get out of the way and let God continue on with the mighty evolution that's taking place. So you might ask, how do I do that? How do I evolve personally? What do I need to do? And first and foremost, we as human beings have to rise up to the point and realize that there is a oneness that exists. Once again, this energy, this God, this spirit, whatever you want to call it, it's everywhere present. It's the very essence of my being, it's the very essence of your being, and that power, that energy, that God spirit is exactly the same. That means that we are one. There is absolutely no place where God isn't. Just as in the ocean, there is no place where it is not wet. In the universe, in existence, there's no place where there isn't this God spirit, this divine spirit that provides for everything we need to move forward. The grand design that we can hold to today is to see a peaceful world. A peaceful world where people are not killed for greed. They're not killed out of fear. They're not enslaved. They're not treated disrespectful or unequal to other people. But we are all one in this body. It's like the left hand shaking the right hand. We're one in this, even though we are different. In your life, the first thing that you can do is to, on a daily basis, connect with that inner spirit, connect with that inner power. And it can be 2 minutes when you wake up in the morning. It can be 30-minute meditation. But just go back and I am part of this grand cosmetic evolution. I am one with it, and I will do everything I can to stand forth for the principles of God, which are love, harmony, and peace. Now, the only thing that comes about in trying that is the habits that we've established in the past. You know, we've been so conditioned to thinking that we are separate. We become so conditioned to thinking that somebody else is wrong and I'm right, somebody is bad and I'm good, that the Democrats are so far out there I could never be one with them, or the Republicans are so far out there I can never be one with them, or the communists, or all these other made-up enemies that we have that are people just like us living a life that was dictated to them somewhere along the line. God is not a person sitting out there on a throne. It's not an old man with long gray hair. God is not an entity separate from you, disconnected from you. God is you. I can't say that the universe holds God's spirit. The universe is God's spirit. It is everything. And the next step on our evolutionary path is to move closer and closer to realizing that, to realizing the oneness. Because the closer we get to it, the more cooperative we become with it. And the more cooperative we become with it, the more we begin to evolve to higher levels of our personal good. Once again, you're not finished. You're not the final product. You haven't arrived. We're all students on the path of life, and we're trying, we're learning, sometimes failing, sometimes falling down, picking ourselves up, and moving forward. That is the process of evolution, and it's an absolute glorious experience once we stop resisting it, once we stop being fearful of it, once we stop complaining about it. Life is what it is. And even though there are many things in our world that perhaps are unacceptable, or perhaps that we don't like, that's all part of the growing process and the evolving process. So as you move into meditation today, think about it. 7 billion people on this earth, you're one of them. Yet you're connected with every single one of those 7 billion people because your source, your inner essence, is exactly the same as theirs. We'll now move into meditation.
Service, when we each take the opportunity to turn our attention away from the outer and to go within to the depths of our own being, to the very source of our existence, and to the very source of all existence. At this time, we disconnect from that identity that believes it is separate and alone in this world, operating on its own, by itself, and for itself. And we remember individually and collectively our oneness with all life, for there is indeed only one power and one presence active in this world and in your life, God the Good, expressing in you, through you, as you, and for you. And not only for you, but for all life. Surely the presence of God is in this room, both within you and all around you. And as you take this opportunity to breathe and go within, remember that one life that you are. Remember it in a way that you bring it forth out into the world, into your life's expression, in this next glorious moment of being. Remember, you are one with God, as God, for God, and for all, here now, in the silence. As you bring your attention gently back into the space of this room and of your own body, as you notice your hands, remember, these are the hands of God. As you notice your feet, notice these are the feet of God. How shall they walk? How shall you act? The voice of God, your voice. And as you slowly open your eyes and move forward into this day, look around and notice everything and everyone around you is God, living, breathing, loving. And so it is. And amen.
This little light of mine, I will let it shine. This little light of mine, I will let it shine. This little light of mine, I will let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let